And now here is part 2 of the NassosVakalis interview.
Yeah.
But the principle of how to move the character in 3D, it's the same for software. It's not really different.
And do you find have you carried over a lot of the skills and principles that you were using in hand-drawn when you're
Definitely, you know, trying to, especially in the timing, there is an aspect of, you know, when you do 3D of puppeteering, you almost have a puppet there and you're moving this puppet.
You're moving the rig.
Yeah, you move the rig, plus, you know, there are certain limitations on the rig, so certain things you cannot do, because if you try to do, the rig kind of breaks apart or deforms the geometry of the character, so you need to go back to whoever built the rig for you or the thing and said, okay, well, you have to fix it.
Or work around it because, and don't do that.
Yeah, right? Or there's some other methods of correcting it or fixing it so you can do, you know, like movements that, you know, all this stuff here, you know, it's very hard to do with the rig because it's not deforming properly. Obviously, there are ways with scripts now that you can have all this done perfectly, but for something that I'll do in my own private thing, it's a big problem.
It's a problem because you're using an off-the-shelf piece.
Yeah, off the shelf, and you know, I mean, even in Messiah, you know, they have an auto rig tool that you build a character and you apply the auto rig, and it gives you certain things that you can do. They're enough, but occasionally you have an action that you cannot do, and then you have to try to figure out how I can do that, or
you abandon doing the action.
Yeah,
right?
or you try to use a different angle, or try to do something, unless you want to spend like a week trying to figure it out and going back to the drawing board or re-rigging the character just for that action.
Do they do that at DreamWorks at all, or do you know?
I know that they have different rigs that they do different
on the same character.
On the same character, yeah. There is, you know, I know, for example, on Puss in Boots, you know, the egg character, what's the name?
Humpty.
Humpty, you know,
Mr. Dumpty
it has the arms that were there, but they also, when they come close, they have to move from their position closer, otherwise they cannot touch. So there are problems you get like this in certain characters, and you have to build other rigs that they do something specific. But this is not the kind of work I do at DreamWorks. The kind of work I do in DreamWorks, it's all story. I'm just talking about stuff I do on my own films, and I was doing with the productions I did in Greece, you know, when we use Maya to rig and animate stuff. We run into situations like that all the time.
But I want to get back to the arc of your career rather than the arc of your animation.
Yeah.
And that is, after you finished, you stayed with Don Bluth Sullivan until...
I'm still friends with the guys. I talk to them occasionally, especially Gary Goldman,
Gary was always a jovial guy when I knew him at Disney, but that's like, gosh, that's 35 years ago. It's a long time ago. I guess my question is, you moved, so when Bluth ended, you moved to Swan Princess.
Yes, I moved to Rick, and then we did Swan Princess.
And then when Swan Princess ended, you moved to Warner Brothers?
Yeah, I voluntarily followed a lead from someone I knew that told me that Warners were doing you know, an animation studio. He told me, come in, you know, we like to have you here. So I just jumped from one place to another. Went to
So you didn't have any break in employment. You just slid
no, especially from
one to the other.
One day I said, you know, guys, I'm not gonna. I took up another opportunity, and I don't even recall if it was during a summer or something, or I took a break to go to Greece for a few months. I don't really recall, but I went from Rick Ritz to Warner's, which were at the time at the Sherman Oaks Galleria.
Was it Sherman Oaks then? And then and then they moved to
Yes,
Glendale.
They moved here in Glendale, and after that they moved again back there or somewhere else. I don't
Yeah, well, they moved. They had basically moved back into Sherman Oaks because essentially what happened is they closed that particular division.
Yeah, there's no the feature film does not exist anymore.
And then they moved on. I guess my question, I don't even know if they still technically had Warner Brothers feature animation.
I don't think they have.
They folded it under Warner Brothers Animation and they moved back to Sherman Oaks. But they had a nice studio in Glendale.
Yeah, on Brown Boulevard.
And it
It was
was,
very
um,
convenient for me. It was very close to where I lived.
You could probably walk it.
And well, it was about 6-7 minutes with the car, so it was not.
So, yeah, so you couldn't walk it. But you were supervising animator
Yeah.
on Quest for Camelot.
Quest for Camelot, yes. that
And did you do any
notorious
story work leading up to
Quest for Camelot?
the supervisory work? Or did
No,
you-
I mean, I did some story work at Rick Ritz. At some point, there was some notes, and they needed a new sequence, and I did some story work there.
And that was really your first professional story work?
Professional story work on a feature film was then. I think at that time, Rick has laid off all the people who was in his story department because his story was done.
Right.
And somewhere towards the end of the movie, a requirement for a new sequence came in, and there are still some people who worked in story, but a group of us, me, Dan Wagner, and Bruce Smith, I think. I might be wrong. I don't remember all the people did some story work, and eventually they animated that. I myself animated on that sequence, and
So you boarded it and you animated it, but you didn't ink and paint it.
No, not. The ink and paint was done somewhere in Asia.
Oh, okay.
For Rick Rich. I think it was all done overseas. So that was the first professional work for a big studio. Then I went to Warner's. I did some storyboards there while they were
It
trying
was development work.
development storyboards and even development animation, like test scenes. I did some test stuff for Cyrano. Did some character designs for Cyrano, storyboards for Cyrano. A lot of stuff like that. And eventually they did Quest for Camelot, which I didn't board anything on it. And I finished Quest for Camelot. Then Brad Bird came in to do the Iron Giant. I was laid off. I was told I will be hired again when animation started. But
This
then
is for the Iron Giant.
for the Iron Giant, I got some other gig. I worked for a place called Playhouse Pictures.
Oh, sure, yeah, they were down in Hollywood.
Yes, with Mr. Woolery, Jerry
and
Woolery.
his dad had.
Yeah,
started the
yeah,
studio.
very nice people. I'll tell you that. I really had a blast working for them. They had a project for Saudi Arabia. I boarded the whole thing. It was half an hour show. They animated somewhere in the Philippines or something. It's like just the
So you did
requirements.
the pre-production, and that was really one of your earlier boards too, right?
Yeah, early boards, but I was doing a lot of Photoshop there, work with my boards there too.
Is that where you started doing storyboards digitally?
Yes, I always liked to do them digitally because one of the things that bothered me when I was watching the story reels was the lack of environment behind the characters. I was always losing the geography. Where are these characters? They were just like standing
Yeah.
in front of a white screen or on a line, and there is this mountain or a tree behind them that in every frame they look different, and it annoyed me. It annoyed me because my animation training was very precise of what I needed to draw, and even when people were Xeroxing, there was never alignment when they're shooting the tree was moving around, and it was taking
Sure.
your eye away from what was happening with the character to some stupid tree or house in the back that was moving like crazy, or a cloud or something. So I figured, and not really figured, because Brad Bird was already doing this on his Iron Giant, trying to implement Photoshop and After Effects, even in that primitive stage of where those programs were at that time. I said, you know something, I'm going to start doing the same thing. And I was using Photoshop, and I was doing nice backgrounds, and I was, cutting my characters and sticking them in front of it, and everything was aligned and everything was right, and then you're delivering to the Avid people, the editors, a file, not a drawing that someone has to shoot again, poorly lit, poorly aligned, and everything was falling in place much better. And then
You were a pioneer.
yeah, I consider me being one of the first people who did this. That I know. Obviously, I might not know the truth, but at the time I went to DreamWorks, I was the only one person doing this.
Now,
from all
did
the
you have
stuff.
to have your own personal computer and software to do this?
At
or-
that point, Macs, DreamWorks has Macs, and I was doing this on a Mac computer. I had a scanner because
Yeah.
I was still drawing and shading part of my drawings on paper, and then I will scan it and do some other manipulation digitally in Photoshop 5, version 5, I think those days or something. Barely had layers, I think, at that point. Yeah, maybe it did have layers. But
And this is about the middle 90s that this is going
yeah, that was the mid 90s. DreamWorks, no, 98,
later 90s.
Yeah, 98.
But everybody else was still on paper then.
Oh, everybody was paper. You had those blocks with you draw the next, you put it underneath so you can kind of trace some of the situation. And I've done tons of that stuff too. You used to pin them.
Put them up on corkboards.
What happened to that?
That was what was going on in the 70s.
Yeah,
I can tell you,
yeah,
there was no
yeah.
computers then.
But some of the stuff I did on Joseph, King of Dreams, that actually kind of like grabbed some attention because of that technique was done this way. I also did Joseph, King of Dreams, which was a movie done towards the end and after the end of Prince of Egypt.
So when did you jump from Playhouse
Yes, as I said, I was laid off.
From Playhouse you went to
To DreamWorks, yes. I got a phone call from DreamWorks, and I was told there was this opportunity for me to come in and work for DreamWorks TV that was doing a sequel to Prince of Egypt. I didn't know at the time what it was. And I had an interview, went there, had an interview, I was hired, and I started doing boards. They hired me as a board artist. Now, it was never clear to me why I was hired as a board artist, but that's what they told me they had for me. So I
didn't want you as an animator.
Well, they were not going to animate it here anyway, and the director, who was another CalArts student, came later after me. I think he told me at some point he knew my film and my work from CalArts. He liked it and he wanted to work with me. That's why he convinced the production to hire me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's fortuitous.
Yeah. I said,
There's the CalArts connection.
Yeah, there you go. I said, I had that effect to a person to actually do something that someone liked. But well, to extend to hire me, to remember me like 10 years later and hire me. So,
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I said I was hired again using my sophomore years, my second year film, on CalArts. See, that's what he told me to bring.
Yeah.
Actually, how to fit the bear.
And it was just simply you left Playhouse because the assignment was over.
Yeah, the assignment was over. It was well paid, I thought, for the amount of work and the length of it. But there was no other work there. That was done for the King of Saudi Arabia, some kind of a bird movie about some species of bird that is extinct, almost close to extinction, and it was an educational thing.
To be shown in the palace.
Yeah, how the oil industry is not actually killing the bird. It's just
That's really nice.
Yeah.
That's really good for the environment.
Yeah.
As we know
Yeah.
from long experience, oil is a good thing.
But anyway.
So there was no really gap between
No,
Playhouse
very little gap in my career. I never really stayed too long without work. And I moved to DreamWorks, work on Joseph, and then by the end of Joseph, I was put into the main DreamWorks pool of storyboard artists. And I work on a lot of things they have there, Spirit, stuff that were in pre-production. They want to make movies. They had a kangaroo movie at some point. I worked on that.
I never saw the light of day.
Yeah, well, I think at the same time, Blue Sky was doing
Well, you know, they did
Ice
do-
Age, which
Did
had
the
a similar.
Kangaroo Jack, which had a kangaroo in it,
No,
which was
this
live action.
this was again. There was a period in time then where two studios will produce the same story but with different animals. So the
Sometimes they produce same story with the same animals. Sometimes they
the same
produce-
artist.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that never seen the light of day. What was the name of the kangaroo? Anyway, it was in Australia. It was kind of interesting. There's some kind of elaborate Photoshop boards on that. And then I moved and I worked on mainly on Spirit, which is a lovely movie. I really like Spirit. It was
Stallion of the Cimarron.
yes. It was hell trying to draw the horses and.
Yeah, well, I know Jennifer Hugh Nelson was on
Yeah.
that, and Larry Leaker was on
Yeah,
that.
Larry Leaker was there drawing them, and a lot of.
So were you up there in that same area? With all of the rest?
Yeah. Simon Wells, we're doing some great action stuff and all that. So I work on that. I even did some animation on that movie. Very little, but still, some of it is still in the movie.
Oh, that's good.
And yeah, and
Keeping your chops up.
yeah, but still at that point, I mean, it was kind of late in my animation career. Although I did a lot of more later than that, but because after Spirit,
Is that your last hand-drawn animation? I mean, that you did for a big studio?
in the U.S., yes, because at that time, around the 2000, I moved back in Greece and I opened my own studio, and I did tons of hand-drawn animation.
And you were doing a lot of it.
I was doing myself a lot of it, and
And what markets were you working for? Were you doing like TV shows? Were you doing commercials?
We did some stuff for A Crazy Night, which was an American film with Adam Sandler. We did a lot for a German company, Munich Animation, and there was another company called Filmax,
Yeah.
which is the last. I think that was the last nice 2D animation I did in a sequence kind of a thing. I did a whole sequence. I just
Is
animated.
this a feature?
It's a feature film. It's about like 5 minute sequence. It's 4 minutes.
But they released it in Europe and probably not in the
I
US.
think it came to the U.S., but it was just
Didn't do much.
yeah. It was one of those things that it depends on the distribution you get. But I did 2 sequences for that movie. Two sequences actually, and that was the last big chunk of 2D animation I did in my life.
Now, when you opened your studio in Greece, how many employees did you have?
Well, initially it was just me and my partner. We went there and we opened this business, and then we looked at the art schools. When we got the big project from Klasky to do the pre-production for the Rugrats Go Wild, at some point we had 45 people,
Wow.
but that was the
Now, were you doing everything soup to nuts? Were you doing the boards, or were they?
No, we didn't do.
boards?
We did little boards on that. We did boards for other movies from other studios that never got produced. There was a movie that Raul Garcia wanted to do, and we did some boards, a lot of boards, almost boarded the half of the movie for him. And we boarded some TV shows for Uli Meyer and a lot of other stuff. But for the Klasky Chupa, we did layouts. We did a lot of the layouts for the.
But not much of the animation.
No poses. We did poses though. We did like
Character layout.
character layout. They call it character layout. Of course, after that, nothing else happened. And
So that was. So you were real busy for a couple of years, and then tailed off.
about 2.5 years, and after the 2.5 years, they came. The last thing we did was that animation for the Spanish company El Cid. I did those 2 sequences, and after that, few commercials. I animated 2 commercials for Uli Meyer, and then suddenly, we just no work was coming in. No work. My partner and I thought, well, we better start turning this to a 3D company because there's no more 2D work out
The
there.
hand-drawn stuff was going
Yeah, it
away.
was thinning. But at that point, I got a
This is
call.
the early 2000s, right?
Yeah, 2002. 2003, I got a phone call, and from Hickner, Steve Hickner. He was doing a.
This is Steve Hickner from DreamWorks.
Yes, yeah, and he was doing a Spirit direct-to-video. I came back to the U.S. for about three months. I boarded the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
about a 35-minute, 40-minute special, Christmas special, and I never got produced. Kept my contacts here, so eventually I decided that I was married 2003, and I said to my wife, something, I'm going to call Hickner again and see what they're doing at DreamWorks, if there's anything there for us to do, because the Olympics were happening, and everything after the Olympics in Athens seems kind of like it's not going to be work. There was not even work for the Olympics. We didn't do any of the Olympics.
And you were expecting
we
gonna
were
get
expecting to do work for the Olympics, and nothing, just dry. The recession was the Greek thing that you hear now was the roots of it was back there, and actually I've foreseen that and been ridiculed for saying when the money was coming to Greece, tons of it, and I was saying there will be a moment that there will be no money coming. Everybody thought I was crazy.
Oh no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly, you are like the guy from the Greek tragedy that comes from the left side of the theater and brings the bad news that's going to happen. That was
Beware the Ides of March.
yeah, beware of the Greeks. And so Hickner said, well, I'm doing the B movie with Jay Seinfeld, and I'm going to talk to DreamWorks. I'm going to try to get you back here. Do you want to come? I said, sure, just give me an offer and I'll come. So
Because there's no work going on in Greece.
nothing was happening.
So you stayed about 2.5 to 3 years, right? And
Nothing
with a
was
break.
happening. My partner, his wife was pregnant. He was going to have. I felt that, the whole studio is going to fall on me, and there was no work. What I'm going to do? I was running out of money, and
Which is always a problem.
it is a problem. Not as much in Greece, believe it or not, because most Greeks have property. They have land, which is and a house, which is very important. And so it's not like I was going to starve, or I couldn't go to work for any other studio, because with my credits and experience, I can go. I mean, my wife's uncle was running the #1 competitive animation studio to ours that was booming during the time. They were doing like 90% of the animated commercials.
Why wouldn't he throw you some work?
He
if
did
he's a
throw
relative?
he did throw me an offer to go and work for him and close my company, but that was kind of his.
And you didn't want to do that.
No, at the point I felt that I shouldn't do that to my partner. I had that kind of ethics. Ethics is it's.
But later you decided that you should have done it.
Oh well, I decided. I mean, after me and my partner had this big fall off, and I've been. I felt I was screwed. I thought I could have taken that avenue at that point, but it's hard to regret things that you do in specific times in your
Sure.
life, because the situations were specific at that time. Plus, looking at now, his company is also struggling. So I would have
Your uncles.
preserved my existence for. Although now I can go back to Greece and retire if I want to, but if I have stayed there and worked with him, I don't think I'll be into the situation to go back and retire. So as you see, sometimes you make some decisions that they work, sometimes they don't. But I took the DreamWorks avenue and came to the B movie because I really miss the United States and the kind of life I had here. Everything in Greece was kind of smaller and difficult. There's a lot of bureaucracy trying to run the company and all that.
Sure.
So I just didn't want to deal with that anymore. I mean, if money did not come and work with the Olympics, why it should come after it? I mean, it's just
Not going to be more, it's going to be less.
It's going to be less, exactly. It proved to be much less. Right now,
well,
everybody's struggling.
They
there.
have their problems, 25%
Yeah.
unemployment.
I mean, I did keep the company, and we did do 2 Christmas specials, 3D, all done in Maya and some other software. I produce both of them. I work on both of them as a designer and art director, and I did a lot of stuff, layouts, and a lot of the people were coming to me, and I did some boards for those things, and either by going there during the summer for 2 or 3 months, or via the internet and stuff.
And this
stuff
was
like
still with your company before.
This was still with my company until the big fall off of 2009 that I decided.
So it lasted in some way, shape, or form until 2009.
Yeah, then the partner who took over of it in his own fashion continued it for another year or 2, and then right now we're in talks to just dissolve it, and each one goes his own way and stuff.
Sure.
But in the meantime, you've been over here most of the time.
Yeah, I've been over here doing a lot of stuff. I did stuff for DreamWorks. I also did stuff outside DreamWorks. I got.
Yeah, talk about, and how did you've done a lot of story work for Illumination Entertainment.
I did some stuff for those guys too.
And how did that come to pass, and what's their process compared to DreamWorks? I guess that would
Well,
be.
the process is the same, They all kind of like give you the script pages and you work from there. I mean, definitely doing occasional freelance for other places. You are detached of what's actually happening within the studio. So sometimes you get notes, sometimes you don't get anything, sometimes you get another sequence, sometimes you deliver it and you're waiting to get a feedback, and then you ask him, so did you guys like, something, we cut the sequence out of the movie, so
it's not all that work you did.
don't worry about it. I think the most successful things that I did was outside the feature film business. I got into this relationship with an Indian company that had a studio in India, and I did a series of animation spots for the internet called Crime Time.
Yeah.
I wrote half of them. There are 130 of these shows. I wrote half of them. And I directed all of them. And
you didn't animate them though.
No. The animation was done in India and in the Philippines. It was a flash animation. It's not like 3D or 2D.
How do you find the time to be a full-time story man for DreamWorks and direct 130 internet shorts?
Yeah, I mean,
and the stuff you do in Greece during the summers. I mean, are you
I mean,
always
there's a lot
juggling
of
2 or
time.
3 jobs at the same
there's
time?
a lot of time during the day, Obviously, there's less time now with the kids, with the babies. But then, you have the whole night until like 3 o'clock. I mean, it's 3 o'clock in the night. It's prime time in India.
But don't you have to sleep?
I do sleep, but I don't require the extensive hours of sleep that most people require. I don't need like 10 hours of sleep or 9 hours of sleep. If I can get 5 hours of sleep, it's fine. If I can get 4, it's fine. I'll sleep a little longer during the weekend. And obviously, directing this stuff is just like watching what they done and just writing them notes and saying that do this and do that and talking to them on the phone for like half an hour. There's no much else you can do because you're
not doing sheets.
No, you're not. No, it was not like that supervised. But it was a pretty successful series.
But how do you get the connections to even do that sort of stuff? Do people approach you?
Through a friend of mine, they approached me. They wanted someone that will give them some kind of an information how they can in this particular studio is how they will improve their quality and bring it closer to the U.S. animation standard, so they can get jobs. The studio can get jobs from Nickelodeon or other places who were subcontracting stuff in India, especially flash animation and stuff.
Yeah.
And they had the experience that sometimes they'll get some notes from the studios that they could not interpret. So they said, okay, you've been in this business for so how long? Just tell us what we are doing wrong, and I'll see what they're doing, and I'll show them some kind of an approach how to do something, not physically doing it for them, just like a consultant kind
You're
of
a
a thing.
consultant.
So I started like this, and they liked what I was saying to them, and eventually, they said, oh, we have this series we want to do. It's about this guy, and we did this pilot. Can you? And said, okay, now you have to do this and bring some other characters, and you're going to have these recurring characters that are coming in, and the conflict is going to be like this, and you always have to have an ironic thing happen. So you kind of I formed the series for them. And then they said, okay, we got this budget, let's just do 20. I think we did 30, and then we did 130.
Wow. So how long did this take? Was this like a year?
About a year. It took about a year. They were like 2 minutes long, each one. I mean, they're called crime times. You can go to YouTube and see them.
260.
Yeah, the first 31st ones were the best, because after the 31st one, they would keep reusing, and the budget was going lower and lower and lower until it ended like almost unexisting. And I got a good composer to write some music for them, a friend of mine.
Then they recycle that.
And
recycle
then he started recycling his music, because he could not, the money they were paying, they could not write new music. But the whole series, it's there are some really funny shows, the episodes that you watch it, and it's always a joke at the end, a punchline, or they never talk, it's never a line, it's just like a visual
So
thing.
were you doing story work on this as well as consulting?
I
and directing?
boarded some of it. Some of it was boarded by Len Simon. Some of it was boarded by other people. Some of it was boarded by people in India. But I wrote maybe half of them, more or less than half of them.
Wow.
I also right before that and during that, I did some work for another studio called Animax.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Animax,
it's
they're in the middle of the valley.
Yeah, they moved. They were in
Dave Thomas.
Culver City, and I did some stuff with them called Off Mics. I
Yeah.
boarded some of that stuff, which was very successful. We were twice nominated for an Emmy. I even got an Emmy out of that once.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the highlight of that experience. You just get some kind of an award for something that you worked
Trophy.
very little actually. I mean, I did like 30 episodes of that, boarded like 32-minute episodes. It's not a lot of work. I can pop one of those like in a night and a half.
Now you were directing those?
No. I was just given a script, and I will do
You were boarding them?
Yeah, I was boarding them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I did a lot of different stuff in my animation career. Now lately, I did that stuff that you mentioned about illumination, but I also kind of focus right now to doing stuff for my own kind of work in the form of short movies. I already completed one. I've done other short movies before. I did one for the Indian guys.
Is the short movie yet, the first one that you did, is it out?
Oh yeah, it was out like 2010.
And it's on YouTube?
No, there's only a trailer on YouTube. It's called Human Nature. It's a 3D movie. Short. It's about 3.5 minutes. But I'm doing a more elaborate movie right now called Dinner for Few. It's a 9-minute long movie. Has like tons of characters, and it has a deeper, kind of more sophisticated style and story. It's not a farce like Human Nature. It's kind of a social political view of the world today, as it expressed through the dinner of that like 6 people are having.
Yeah.
So just watch for it. In about a year it will be done, because it's very, very complex.
Well, you've got to email me some of these links to some.
Yeah,
of the
I
YouTube
soon gonna have
because I'll put them up with the interview.
Yeah, I have a web page done. I need to get the guy. It's some kind of Ukrainian I get these people over the internet who help me all over the world to do stuff. So the film webpage is done by this guy Danas in Ukraine. He said, "Okay, I'll help you." He built the webpage for me, So.
But is it up and running, or is it?
It's. I have the domain name. I just right now he has it up on his own domain. I need to transfer it to the domain name of the title of the movie, which is Dinner for Few, which
Dinner
is
for Few.
a 3D movie rendered to look like a 2D movie, rendered to look as a hand-drawn movie, as less as possible.
Like Paper Man.
Well, I think the style of the movie and the message of the movie, it expressed better on that style than the 3D kind of like real lighting,
Sure.
global illumination,
Sure.
lighting. Maybe someone else can even do it in a better kind of design, but with the technology I had and the skills I had at that point, I was only able to do it this way to come close to what I wanted to do. So hopefully I'll have this done by the end of this year, the 2013. I'm halfway through it. It's tons of work.
Now we'll shift gears. I want to go back to, you came back into town to work on the B movie. So
Yes.
how was it working with Jerry Seinfeld and Steve Hickner
Well, I knew
after being in Greece all those years?
I knew Jay from his show. I really like his show. I didn't know him as a person. That wasn't a comment towards him. I just I like the guy. It's just like his humor is great. I wouldn't say he was easy to work with. He was difficult. He had his
demanding.
own demanding, his own kind of a humor, his own kind of a style. He wanted to do animation, and he did animation. I really enjoy the movies that I work, and I work with people that I know, and because if the director is someone I know, or the people or my supervisor is someone I know, I tend to get more freedom to do stuff, and compared to where I go to a show that no one knows me, I'm kind of like I tend to get less, I wouldn't say less attention, and less opportunities to do something besides the ordinary. So
Yeah. Well, was Jerry gave you a lot of input?
Jay did give me input, but Steve Hickner was directing the movie, so at least he was giving me the right to do my stuff, and then it was his job to sell it to Jerry. It was not my job to sell it to Jerry.
Oh, you didn't have to pitch the boards to Jerry.
I will pitch the boards to Jerry, but and Jay will most of the times, shoot them down. But at least I will say, Steve, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I say, okay, do it good, so we can sell it to Jay. And so Jerry, some of it is still in the movie. There is a sequence that some guy is fighting the bee with a pin. Because the pin has a little sting, like a little thing,
stinger on it.
And
sword fight.
Yeah, the sword fight. I did that stuff. I did a lot of stuff in that.
You did a lot of the action stuff, didn't you?
I did a lot of the action. I got nominated for an Annie Award for that movie. I did a lot of After Effects work, elaborate bee flying sequence through brass.
Yeah, you showed me some of that, and
Yeah.
I was amazed. You were sort of a pioneer of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
too, right?
I did some of that stuff too. Occasionally, they still call me at DreamWorks from other productions and want something like this in their movie. I've done it for Puss in Boots. I've done it for Croods. I've done it for a lot of other shows. Occasionally, they say, okay, we want some of that elaborate things you do with After Effects.
So you do.
Yeah, I do.
Nice
I say,
nice
I don't
having a
like to
niche.
do it. I don't like to do it, but
You're a good
I do.
soldier.
Sometimes they get me into trouble. I mean, I did them for Kung Fu Panda, and it got me into trouble.
Really?
Yeah, I almost got fired.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was not.
You want to go into the details, or do you want to leave it at that?
I think the only detail I will say about this is that there's in order to do them, you have to do certain things, and if the production doesn't want you to do those certain things, then you cannot do your work. And then you ask why you cannot do your work or why your work is like this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, for an example, I'll give you is like if you want to move something, you know, you have to draw the character. You cannot take something that someone else has drawn because it's not drawn to be put into the After Effects. If you want to take,
So you have to redraw.
you have to redraw it, and then someone might complain why this guy's redrawing the stuff, and then you go to a cycle of like yes, but and you can never win that, you know. So
You just go with the flow.
Exactly,
That's all you can do.
you just keep saying that it was your fault.
So, what was it? Were you doing the same kind of action stuff on like Puss in Boots and Monsters?
Yeah, I did. I think on Pussy Boots, Jeffrey wanted to go to the Cannes Festival or something and saw some Pussy Boots. So he had a sequence, and I Puss chasing Kitty, whatever the cat's name was, Kitty, I think.
Right.
It's called Kitty, through some kind of houses and stuff on the roofs and stuff. So I did a sequence like that for him, and I did it for Croods. Recently, there was a sequence of some kind of a piranha birds. I don't know if I should say that about the movie that is not out, but there's a sequence.
There's a chase.
Yeah, chase, and I did some stuff there too.
So, what was the Cruise the last thing you were on, or what was the
Oh,
last
Croods was just, I was put on Croods for like a month to do that. Last thing I worked on was Turbo. Just released from Turbo a few days ago. Kind of waiting what my next thing will be. Having some time coming here.
And in the
talking.
meantime, you haven't decided whether you're going to wrap up things in Greece, go back
I
there?
was there for a summer. We finally, agreed. The situation in Greece. We agreed to actually appear together in front of lawyers and and take some decisions because
So there's litigation.
since then it was only on the courts, but the courts now have more important things to do than following my case.
What happens to the animation?
Yeah,
studio?
the animation future of Greece. So hopefully this will be over soon.
Yeah.
The thing, whatever cost it has, but it's going to be over soon.
Now, I guess I have a couple of wrap-up questions.
Okay.
One is, you've been in the biz now for like 25 years.
Let me see. What
You
is
started in the middle 80s.
Yeah. Middle 80s. I came to the U.S. 85 or 85. I
And you
think.
started working in 88.
Yeah. 89. I finished the Bear movie, and after that I went to Bluth. Yeah.
And so you've been, I mean, my gosh, that's 23 years of nonstop work.
Yeah.
And you've worked on European productions, you've worked on European commercials, you've worked on American films, a lot of American films,
Indian stuff.
Indian stuff. So, what are the 3 or 4 pictures that you've worked on that you have found most soul satisfying?
Okay. I know this might sound weird, but and people might say, "Oh, it's because it's your last one, the last one you worked." But I'll say this, and I said that to the production. I really had a great time working on Turbo. Turbo was great. I worked with people who I knew. They were open to ideas. It was also as a production very smooth compared to other productions. It was very smooth. It had the story, there was a story, there was an ending, there was everything there. So I really like Turbo.
And you've seen the movie, or at least you've seen it in some
I've
way,
seen
too.
I've seen it all up. Well, the latest cut of it. So it's pretty much the same movie that we've
It's
seen like
always been.
2 years.
You think it's going to do well?
I certainly think it's going to do well. I hope it's going to do well.
Yeah.
It's good for the business. It's definitely good for DreamWorks.
Well, they've been on a run recently. They certainly
Yeah,
have.
it's been successful recently at DreamWorks. I really liked Spirit. I thought Spirit was a really nice movie. I do like 2D. I do see there is some level of art in the 2D that 3D cannot achieve. There is this human element that is kind of missing of of the 3D. It's missing. It's just, you know, the more they try to make it look real, the more synthetic kind of looks sometimes, and you know, and the way everything has to look perfect, it makes the world
Every
look
strand,
yeah. They were
The
telling me, I
lighting
mean,
and
how
stuff.
they go in and I didn't know that. Someone was telling me how they go in, and if someone has a beard or something, and they each hair has a different number, and if the hair kind of goes into some other solid, they have to cut this hair, delete it so it doesn't go in, and all that. And I'm kind of like, oh, I mean, I have people who do that stuff.
Photorealism.
Yeah. So there is a quality on the 2D when it's done well that it's unparalleled. You know, those are probably the best movies I think I've worked on. I mean, generally I have a good experience working in the movies. I get frustrated when the story is not there, and there's this constant pursuit of like, oh, we have to find an ending, or we have to, well, how are we going to end this, you know, and.
Do you ever get involved in some of the story meetings and people tearing their hair out?
We had more in other productions than Turbo. You know, there are two kind of stories. The ones that are like script driven, and I think Turbo and B movie was kind of a script driven. And then you have movies like Shrek. I never worked on a Shrek movie, but it's more, from what I heard, Shrek was a more kind of like story man driven movie. People will get together and crack jokes and storylines,
Right.
and they'll take an avenue and see where it takes them.
Right.
Sometimes it kind of lets you kind of go in circles, but you can go in circles in any method.
Sometimes it works real well, and
Yeah,
it certainly
yeah.
worked for Shrek.
Yeah, it did work for Shrek. It was very, very successful. I mean, even I worked on Puss in Boots, and I felt really nice. I was
Now, was that storyboard driven or script driven, or was it a
some of it
combination?
was a combination. The thing I did on that was, you know, there was this idea of the beanstalk going up, and no one wanted to animate to storyboard that. It looks too complex. So I was given to do that, and I did the first you know, takes on that sequence, and I did them all in After Effects and with elaborate kind of like layouts and
I
rain
wondered,
and
now I have a question, since you worked on that particular section of the film. You know, because there's Mickey and the Beanstalk where they're all sleeping and the things growing, and it was like, when I saw that, I said, are they going to do something with these magic beans, and it's going to, but they did something quite a bit different, which I thought was good. You know, it was like, oh, because I had this sneaking suspicion that they were going to do a variation of that Mickey Mouse short, but they really went a whole different direction, which I guess. Was there any discussion about that, or was it like nobody went, nah?
No, because I mean, from what I know, the story was already written. They go in, they find this place, and they will put them, and they'll wait for a little bit, and nothing will happen. And then, you know, suddenly the thing will come out of nowhere and propel them up. So that
so it wasn't. Yeah, okay. Then it was
I had
different
to
begin
do
with.
that, you know. But the thing is, you know, they wanted this effect, when you watch it, even as storyboards, they wanted this effect of the thing kind of like growing, and things were coming out, and leaves and stuff, and they thought, well, who can do this for us, you know, before we go to the 3D, which actually we know we can do it, but we have to inspire those people in a way. So I did something like that, and then they like it. They thought it was pretty.
Oh, good. So how long were you on that? A couple of months?
It was about a year.
Okay.
I'd say about a year on Puss in Boots. Yeah.
I like the picture quite a bit.
Yeah. It's a good
And
picture.
you never know.
I hope they do. They said they might be doing another.
Well, I think it did well enough
Yeah,
that
it did well
they
enough,
would
yeah.
want to do another.
They all do kind of well, right, nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And the final question,
Yes.
and this is one that I ask everybody, and I think we previewed this. Your 5 most inspirational pieces of animation that you didn't work on,
Yeah.
that you observed as a child or young adult, and that made you want to get into the business to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to the Disney stuff. Basically, all the movies that have extensive work of Milko, because for me, you know, his precision and drawing and his acting was one of the best. So movies like Mowgli, I keep calling it Mowgli. It's called Mowgli in Greek.
Greece?
That's why. Aristocats, Sword in the Stone.
Yes, some great work in that.
The live action animation one, the Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and from the Disney stuff. So I don't know if this is 5 movies or what.
That's pretty
And
close.
some of the Tex Avery stuff I like. There's especially this 3 Papa Bear with a sun bear kind of a thing. You know, he gets the thing and he reads powder and he says tobacco. All that stuff I thought was really.
And what inspired you and dazzled you about, well, the Milk Call stuff? It was just the way Milk Call handled it.
Yeah, the way he handled the animation, it was just like very solid, very well drawing. It has the design within the drawing. There was a design. You know, it was obviously the period of these movies was all like that. You know, I mean, Sleeping Beauty is, I mean, it's a completely different kind of style. It's not the Xerox stuff, and it's also very beautiful. So that's also like an inspirational thing for just the scope of it was very impressive. You know, the scope of dancing on the forest and the backgrounds. I mean, beautiful.
Ivan Earl
and the design of the characters and the lines and all that. So the style, how stylized it was, but still worked very, very, very well. So, yeah, Milk Call was my inspiration. You know,
Well, I think we have covered the
the days in life of me.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And we will do it again sometime.
All right, thank you.